Released by Monolith Soft in 2004 on the PlayStation 2, Xenosaga Episode II would be the second of a 3-episode saga. Directed by Ko Arai and written by Norihiko Yonesaka, the story would be based on the original draft by series creator Tetsuya Takahashi. For story, the game features the return of Shion, Cosmos, Chaos, Junior, Ziggy, and Momo, as events pick up directly where the last story left off and continue the race for the Zohar on Milsha. There are 8 playable characters, though only 3 can be fielded at a time. For battle, the game utilizes the same combat format as before, though with many expanded options. Enemies or allies can flank the other. Enemies now have 3 zones that may be targeted or exploited, and can now either be launched into the air or knocked prone on the ground. Characters can now store and use a resource called stock in order to execute powerful combos or multi-character double attacks. Shops, equipment, and traditional money have been removed, as the skill trees have also been somewhat simplified, though money exists as part of a side mission to pay off Captain Matthew's debt. The story only gets larger from here, so let's cut it down to size with a recapitation. The game begins 14 years before the events of the first game, during the events of the Milshan conflict. A Realian named Kanan, created by Vector Industries, is partnered with the mysterious Chaos in a top-secret mission to retrieve the URTV force deployed at a specific location, and if they can, also infiltrate Utic and acquire the Y data. Dropping down in a mech, they meet immediate aerial resistance and land off of their intended course. As they approach their destination, a pillar of light bursts forth and they now hear strange music. Chaos recognizes it as a Song of Nephilim and is in disbelief Utic would actually use it. Suddenly, allied forces begin to fire at them like an enemy, and even Kanan is starting to feel the song's effects. They encounter a single friendly not falling to the influence like the others, as they fight through former friend and foe alike. When their mechs can no longer fight, they move forward on foot, though their new ally shows he is very adept with a blade on foot as well, introducing himself as Jin Uzuki. Jin knows where the URTVs are now, and guides them there, while explaining this whole mess is an attempt to make Milsha a scapegoat, and Utic is just a cover for a larger power hiding in the shadows. He believes Utic is driving a wedge between the Federation and the Milshan system, all to obtain the Y data. He learned that all manner of data from all existing phenomena is gathered within an area of space, and beyond it lies a special space only described in the Y data. Chaos finds it strange how Jin came to learn all this, but Jin states he has his ways, and must complete his work of dragging the shadow into the light. When they arrive before the URTVs, Margulis intercepts them, intending to end Uzuki. The two engage in a high-skilled duel, but neither is able to best the other. Firing off one last attack at each other, Jin stumbles, but not before deeply scarring Margulis and sending him tumbling away. He takes the stolen data he has yet to decode, and copies it to Kanan, bidding him farewell before leaping away. However, as Chaos and Kanan now notice, a huge black front of energy quickly approaches and engulfs them, knocking them out. As we return to present-day Second Milsha, we see Kanan was reliving his memories to view beyond the black shadow, but to no avail. As such, they still cannot access the data Jin gave him. As he reports this to Representative Helmer, Helmer repeats the data is important for learning the truth behind the Milshan conflict, and originally Jin was working for Helmer. For now, he assigns him to a new mission to assist in the deep dive of the subconscious of Momo. In fact, Momo and the crew with her have just landed, and Kanan is asked to pick them up. At the same time, Margulis speaks with the Patriarch of Ormus, sharing that while Momo is in custody of the Kukai Foundation, it's fine since their only way of accessing a high-level encryption for the Y data is in a facility on Second Milsha. Her being there is not a problem, and the next step in their plan is already underway. After he takes his leave, he continues on with his own agenda, giving his assistant Pellegrini a ship equipped with the Vessel of Anima, an ancient relic found at the same time as the Zohar with the firepower of an entire fleet. Back with the main party, Shion recounts their journey so far, though this ends with Alan accidentally breaking her glasses. The Elsa lands safely, and Shion, Alan, and Cosmos leave to report to Vector's 2nd Division, while Ziggy leaves to report to the subcommittee about their status. Chaos and Junior escort them, though along the way, a pair of mechs ambush them on the highway. Momo's ace piloting skills take the wheel, while the rest fend them off, narrowly escaping down a tunnel. Heading to the nearest Second Milsha defense zone, Junior alerts Gainan to send backup, but curiously Gainan is slow to respond and wonders why he was just in a daze. The enemy is relentless in their pursuit, even on land, as even Pellegrini arrives to help capture Momo, but just in time Kanan comes in to save them. However, as they clash, a strange phenomenon freezes up her mech, forcing the Utic forces to retreat for now. Seeing the situation under control, Kanan pulls back, bidding farewell to Rubido, who shoots back his name is Junior now. Junior now reflects back to the Milshan conflict days when he was carrying a severely wounded Gainan and was rescued by Chaos and Kanan. Chaos relates them as the Four Horsemen, with the red hair meaning war and the black hair meaning famine, as Junior blames himself for this outcome. Kanan shares that Rubido and Albedo were conjoined twins, and Chaos understands Albedo is the White Horse Rider. Back with Xion, they learn the Gnosis threat is spreading even faster now, as now over 120 star systems have been eradicated. The second division then reveals the Cosmos tertiary weapons systems designed as a means to prevent a worst-case scenario. Elaborating, it's shared that the Zohar project's ultimate goal is the eradication of the Gnosis, and to this end they need the original Zohar sleeping on Miltia. The Zohar is this dimension's ultimate energy source, however the core unit that controls it, beyond its initial loss, is the phenomenon known as Udu, which is what has brought about the Gnosis. For now, they need to outfit Cosmos with this new weapons system and calibrate tests for it. Xion challenges handing over Cosmos, but is reminded that she doesn't have the authority for that, not to mention, the weapon system was designed by Kevin for Cosmos to begin with. With that, she transfers control of Cosmos over and reflects on a past conversation with Kevin about his hopes and dreams for the unit. He revealed a custom transport for her and his dream of Cosmos leading humanity to an ideal future beyond her combat functionality. As she leaves, she asks Alan to keep an eye on Cosmos and leaves noticeably bothered. Having grown up here, she visits her old neighborhood, and at an old tavern she used to frequent, she learns her brother still frequents the same spot too, as Chaos and Junior happen to swing by for a meal. Elsewhere, Guinan arrives on 2nd Miltia in person and meets with Helmer, who catches him up on the gravity of the situation. Momo is brought in as well, ready to begin her analysis at a nearby UMN facility. As she leaves, Helmer asks Guinan for some recon work, and stepping out, Guinan reaches out telepathically to Albedo. Initially, he extends peace talks to him, but Albedo questions if Guinan isn't just lying in wait to show his true colors as an executioner. He then mentions how he'll be borrowing Junior soon, and objecting, Guinan sends a psychic attack that remotely destroys Albedo's arm as a warning. As he regenerates, Albedo laughs at Guinan's duplicitous nature of offering life in one hand and delivering death in the other, ending the link. With this, he confirms Albedo intends to link with Udu, but questions his plans for Junior. Back with Xion, her older brother Jin now enters the same tavern, and the two siblings grate on each other despite having not seen each other for a few years. Jin invites her to visit their old home, and extends the offer to Chaos and Junior, who accept. Xion isn't pleased that her brother turned their home into a bookstore, where half of the library came from their grandfather, and the rest had been him building up a collection. Jin insists they visit their parents' grave and pay respects, but Xion strongly protests, knowing their parents aren't even in those graves, and coming close to blaming Jin for their parents' deaths. Xion leaves upset, and Chaos asks to stay there that night, while Junior leaves on his own business. Later, Chaos speaks with Jin about Utic and the events 14 years ago, and Jin laments not being there when Xion needed him, and because of that, still can't get close to her again out of fear of her rejecting him. Chaos reassures him Xion still cares for him as family, and the next day Xion changes outfits and informs them she'll check in on Cosmos while they watch over Momo's analysis. Back with Utic, Margulis shares that soon Albedo will break Old Miltia's seal and the Patriarch will order the immigrant fleet to invade in an effort to secure the original Zohar. In the UMN Control Center, Momo dresses up to meet with her mother Julie, who is distant and formal when she comes in, though she acts nice in a very measured way. Junior catches this and calls her out on it to the side, and she knows her husband designed the reality to respond to familial warmth, so to her, acting like a nice mother is part of the job to make sure Momo operates properly. Junior replies that he made a promise to Joachim's real daughter Sakura and will continue to treat Momo as a real girl, and look out for both of their happiness, so he encourages her to smile honestly for both their sakes. Julie leaves and checks in on Ziggy at Momo's behest, and as they talk, she poses the question of if he could love something that was made to look like one's daughter, but wasn't, which he admits is hard to answer. To her, every 100 series Realian is a reminder of Sakura's death, and Ziggy can relate, as he once had a son whom he lost in an accident, and this was the reason he committed suicide. He encourages her to instead think of Momo as a second daughter, and not as a replacement for Sakura, and she takes her leave. As they prepare her for her analysis, they find some of her data routes were damaged during Albedo's hacking attempt. During the procedure, Momo suddenly notices something and attempts to warn them that it's a trap, but it's too late as quickly the Realians in the facility cease functioning and the UMN Center is finding itself being hacked from somewhere. They suspect this to be a trap planted by Albedo, and in response, Momo attempts to shatter and disperse her memories herself to prevent the enemy from acquiring it. As Momo shuts down, Albedo appears on their monitors, taunting them about the trap, but admitting Momo's efforts did work. Later, Helmer reaches out to Xion, stating that Momo survived, but her mind has been completely lost, and they need Vector's 3rd research division to recover the Y data. Alan makes the arrangement as they hurry to visit Momo. At the same time, the Patriarch speaks to the Council and rationalizes their invasion by claiming the knowledge kept on Miltia was originally under the care of the immigrant fleet, and the Miltian government has used the incident 14 years ago to justify their mobilization. He claims they have summoned Proto-Merkaba and intend to use it for their own self-interests. However, the recent attacks were committed by Utic as supported by Vector, but Vector is then suspected of secretly supporting the Miltian government, and Helmer is curiously absent from his discussion to defend his position. In fact, Helmer is actually out visiting Jin in an effort to enlist his services again, and help figure out the data he entrusted to Kanan. Jin is reluctant, but Helmer points out Jin stands to gain from this as well. Reconsidering, Jin points out that in order to unravel the truth, they need to return to Miltia, and Helmer is prepared for that outcome. As Shion arrives with the others, they prepare to dive into Momo's subconscious, unstable as it is, to recover the data. As Alan sets things up, he points out in the Encephalon's digital world they can even have Cosmos' data replicated there as backup, but also the chance of resonant memories playing back of anyone nearby here at the same time and space may also occur. Junior declares that means him, as Momo's memories include Sakura's memories. He explained that Sakura suffered from a central nervous system disorder, and treatment at the time coincided with URTV's linked training, so he dealt directly with Sakura at one point. Ziggy questions what Udo even is and why the URTVs were meant to fight it, and Junior reflects on how once they went to confront Udo on Miltia. Junior was Rubido at the time, and Albedo was his scared, nervous twin. During the operation, he received a horrific vision of the future and made the call to sever the link mid-process, suspecting their creator knew the consequences. Unfortunately, this caused the energy to jump out of control and strike most of the URTVs, including Albedo. He simply states to the rest of the group that Udo is an energy from a higher dimension and one humans cannot control. With that, they begin their dive into Momo's mind, wherein they witness when Sakura first met Rubido, Albedo, and Negredo, who were able to understand her due to their link abilities. At the time, Julie was overwhelmingly happy to hear this and entrusted Rubido to help them both. Because of her condition, Sakura was unable to speak in the real world, so Rubido would spend his time talking with her. She shared that her father was working on a new reality that could always link up with her, and thus would be able to communicate in the real world. She also shared that her little sister would be born soon, and asked Rubido to look after both her and her mom. He promised to watch over her little sister like his own sister, earning a kiss from Sakura, though Albedo didn't like the attention he was giving her. Soon, they were introduced to Unit 668, Citrine, a self-assured and direct female URTV unit, and later dispatched on a mission to identify and eliminate the disorder within Sakura. Between themselves, Albedo hates the weaker mass units of 1 through 665, while the mass URTVs do not respect Rubido as the leader, much to Albedo's ire. To their surprise, they find waves inside of Sakura that infect and transform the URTVs into monsters despite not being in an Udo simulator, and though they defend themselves, Rubido does not approve of Albedo's excessive violence against his brethren. Back at base, Albedo doesn't understand why they are so concerned, as he claims any URTVs injured can just regenerate, spontaneously blowing his own head off and regrowing it back as an example. Horrified and mad at this, Rubido punches Albedo, telling him not to take death lightly, as Negredo explains only Albedo has a regenerative ability. To this, Albedo begins to despair, learning his brothers will one day die and thus leave him behind. Junior shares that ever since Albedo learned he couldn't die, he began to change, as when they get close to another memory of Sakura again, Albedo begins to cackle and mock him in his more adult tone. The memory of Sakura shifts to Momo, warning them it's another trap, as Junior begins to burn uncontrollably with rage again. Thinking this was a move predicted by Albedo specific for Junior, Alan notes someone is now somehow entering the Encephalon, as Albedo forces his way into their dive. As the two clash, Momo urges them to stop, which was also a move Albedo predicted, as her consciousness returns, which also exposes the last seal to the Y data, which Albedo snatches before them. With the key to the Abyss now in his hands, Albedo has what he needs to unlock the way to Old Miltia, and does so. In response to this, the Federation government and immigrant fleet both began their invasion of Miltian space, both intending to gain control of the Zohar sleeping on Miltia. The immigrant fleet would break through the Federation blockade to enter Old Miltia, but here's Vector will be taking action too, to which Margulis deploys the Inquisitors. At the same time, Shion and Alan return to the Damrung, stationed in Miltian space, to make their report on the situation so far, and Helmer opts to send a covert force to Miltia to also acquire the Zohar, in collaboration with Vector, the Contact Subcommittee, and the Kukai Foundation. Utilizing a restored and upgraded Elsa, Jin and Kanan are deployed as well to raise their chances of success in this mission. As the navigational aptitude of Momo will be needed to ensure the Elsa reaches Milsha undetected, she is deployed as well, though Julie admits to herself she's concerned for her as a mother and wishes for her safe return. At the same time, Shion sees visions of Nephilim once again, and has a dream wherein Fabronia reminds her of her request to save Cecily and Kath, who are still imprisoned by the Zohar. Even though a war is about to start, Shion decides to use the secret transport developed for Cosmos as a means to travel directly to Milsha, and Alan tags along, vocally choosing to step up for the woman he loves. As even Alan manages to do good in this heist, their movements are still being observed by Vector President Wilhelm, who speaks to a red-cloaked man about how Albedo has served his role, and has confidence Shion will complete her task. As soon as Shion and Alan warp near Old Milsha, they are intercepted by a black mech with countless drones and controls. Overwhelmed by its assaults, Shion's cries for help are heard by Cosmos, who autonomously activates herself to the disbelief of the 2nd Division. With an upgraded body, Cosmos transforms her pod into a motorcycle and declares she is on her way to save Shion, proceeding to blast up a ramp and away into orbit. Quickly catching up to Shion and Alan's plight, Cosmos flies in and initiates a docking procedure with their craft, which transforms and receives the bike that turns into a cockpit. Now complete, the craft transforms again into its own mech, and in a single blast is able to neutralize all enemy drones and chase away the dark foe. They are then hailed by the Elsa, who comes by to pick them up, and the group is reunited again. Unfortunately, a large Ormus stronghold warps in front of them to bar their way, and between two black holes the group has no choice but to approach head on. Dashing through the rain of enemy fire, the Elsa does its best to head straight for the stronghold, and while succeeding on a crash landing, the group prepares to board and disable the Ormus fortress. First storming in with their mechs, Kanan takes point, defeating the two mechs that assaulted them earlier. Defeating the assassin Orgula within, they blow up the core of the fortress and escape, and even though Pellegrini fails to halt them, the Elsa's engines were damaged in the attack, preventing them from leaving. As the twin black holes begin to devour the ship, they are towed away and saved by Junior's ship and crew, the Durandal, in the nick of time, who said they were sent to help by Guinan, though Guinan himself is taking care of business in the Federation capital of 5th Jerusalem. As we see Guinan, he is struggling mentally while remembering Citrine once saying he was just like her, someone assigned to manage and potentially subdue the powerful yet potentially uncontrollable Red Dragon, aka Rubido. He deliberately was designed not to react to the Udu simulator, and in another memory, he panicked, shot, and killed their creator, Dimitri. Back in present day, Guinan reels in pain as his hair turns blonde, and it somehow turns out Dimitri transferred his consciousness into Guinan and has laid dormant these past 14 years until today. Back with the group, they learn the immigrant fleet has already landed on Milsha, so the race is on for the Zohar. Dimitri gets updated on the status of the factions, as he is glad his life extension plan has worked out. As the group rushes in, they find the world is exactly the same as they remember it, as if time had stopped. Exploring the ground level in their mechs, enemy resistance is high as they disembark and explore the innards of Labyrinthos, noting the presence of Udu has spread further out than they thought. Finding the main terminal, Jin points out the data sealed within Kanan can be removed here, and they can finally learn the identity of the mastermind behind the Milshan conflict. Everyone was told to believe it was Joachim Mizrahi, but that's not the whole truth. He reminds them Utik was originally Joachim's group made to study the Zohar, but it was originally part of the Federation. Joachim converted it into a military organization, but not with the permission or resources of the Federation government. Instead, he was receiving backing from a dummy company that was headed by a man named Heinlein, who is also a cardinal of the immigrant fleet. It's unlikely Joachim knew it was the immigrant fleet indirectly using him to gain information about the Zohar, but neither would predict the emergence of Udu and the Gnosis. Joachim, in a move to prevent the worst-case scenario, sacrificed many in order to isolate Udu, the Zohar, and all of Milsha and the Abyss. Knowing this, if the immigrant fleet succeeds in obtaining the Zohar, then all the tragedies will simply repeat again. Exploring deeper within, they are met by Margulis, who claims they have already claimed the Zohar, and opens with a fierce attack. Jin steps in to parry, reminding Margulis of the teachings of their mutual swordmaster, Jin's grandfather. The two lock blades in a deadly duel, once again moving to settle things in a single exchange of blows. Though neither side wins, Margulis is injured enough to pull back with the help of a mech, taunting Jin to settle things later if he even survives this now. As they advance, they find the Zohar, which Junior confirms is the original. Cosmos detects life signs in the capsules in front of them, and looking closer, they discover the resting spots of Cecilia and Catherine. Though technically alive, the two Realians are in horrible states. Though she came to free them, Shion despairs upon seeing their condition, and Cosmos shares that because they are fused with the system, they have lost their individual consciousness, so separating them now would result in complete shutdown. The leader of the immigrant fleet now speaks up, explaining isolating their consciences was the only way to have them work the way they wanted them to. He also mentions how for ages, the Ormus have protected the Zohar, and in return are free to use it however they want as they guide humanity forward. The Zohar now begins to glow, and Junior hears the voice of Udu, urging them to stop the system immediately. Cosmos steps forward to do so, but Shion begs her not to fire for the sake of Cecilia and Catherine. A vision of Fabronia appears before Shion again, asking her again to free her sisters, and bitterly Shion allows Cosmos to fire, destroying both sisters. Unfortunately, it's too late, as the Zohar is encompassed by a huge machine Jin recognizes as Proto-Omega. Now completed, the Patriarch claims they have a weapon to not only wipe out the Gnosis, but also place the entire star system under Ormus jurisdiction. He easily blows the party back as he moves on with his business, getting away with the Proto-Omega. As the party is forced to quickly escape, a massive entity bursts through the planet's crust and rends the world in half, striking down the Federation fleet in orbit. As the immigrant fleet and Federation forces exchange fire, it is background to Miltia exploding and revealing a planet-sized Omega system. Meanwhile, Pellegrini is speaking to a member of UTIC as Dimitri walks in, shocking her with his existence, as well as declaring he has taken control of Parliament and won't allow her to continue. At the same time, Margulis now confronts the Patriarch, reminding him the Inquisitors only serve one master, and it isn't him, so he needs to die as a martyr now. Back with Shion, she's still upset about the deaths of Cecilia and Catherine, as it reminds her of 14 years ago when Fabronia died. Jin explains Fabronia chose Shion to bear the pain because she loves Shion as much as her own sisters, and all of them were still chained to the past. Reflecting on this, Shion chooses to accept the pain and move on, returning to the group. On the Durandal, Junior is surprised to be contacted by Dimitri, and while catching up on the current situation, he admits it was a planned decision to save the star system at the cost of a single planet. For now, he is more focused on stopping Udu's potential reawakening, and to do this, they need to stop Albedo, who was infected by Udu, from re-establishing contact with Udu. Leaving this task to Junior, Junior states he agrees Udu shouldn't be reawakened, but refuses to do it by killing Albedo, intending to find another way. As the transmission ends, Gaidon struggles to reclaim control of his body for the time being. The group now moves to infiltrate the Omega system, and after fighting a bizarre cathedral within, they confront the Patriarch and Proto-Omega. However, Albedo teleports onto the scene, claiming the power of Zohar for himself instead of Ormus. As the two exchange blows, Proto-Omega blows away Albedo, and Junior rushes to his side, still concerned for his twin brother. The group then teams up to take down the power-hungry leader of an ancient religion, who remains undeterred in his mission. He reveals to them the Proto-Omega's phase transfer cannon, a weapon that can strike any target from anywhere in space. As he prepares to use the weapon against the group, the Proto-Omega stops, much to his surprise. Now stepping out to state the Zohar does not belong to him, the three Testaments appear to forcibly remove the Patriarch, and Shion recognizes the voice of the Red Cloak Testament. The Blue Testament easily eliminates both the Patriarch and removes the Proto-Omega from the Zohar, as the Black Testament and Ziggy both recognize each other as well. Realizing he's the man who killed his wife and son, Ziggy fires on the Black Testament in a sudden rage, but it proves useless. Moving now to rebuild Albedo, they leave and Albedo immediately resumes his mission of contacting Udu via the Zohar. Massive energy begins lashing out, and Cosmos steps forward with new armaments to shield the group and buy them time to escape. Ziggy sacrifices an arm to smash a nearby wall that leads them back to the Elsa, as the group flees the Omega system and Albedo creates a massive space-time anomaly. As they return back to the Durandal, it seems the anomaly isn't expanding for now, but will swallow the whole region eventually. To himself, Junior knows he has to do something about Albedo, but isn't eager to fight him, though he knows he is the only one who can. Meanwhile, Julie supervises Ziggy's repairs and upgrades and urges him to accept organic lifetime extension, as it would mean a lot to Momo, and even feels she can learn more from him. Junior walks in while in thought, mentioning this was the first time he's seen Ziggy angry, and is glad he still has some human emotion in him. As Junior leaves, Momo catches him trying to go by himself, as he insists Albedo has been talking to him, telling him it has to be him to settle things. Momo tries to have him promise to come back, but he just smirks and runs off. Taking Kanan's mech, he launches into the anomaly, and within, Albedo tortures him with scenes of his past, perverted by the hateful biases of Albedo. The harassment works, as Junior finds himself unable to control slipping into the anti-Udu Red Dragon mode. But then, memories of Sakura come out to calm him down and regain control. Stepping into a throne room with an altered body of Albedo fused within, Junior makes his plea for him to stop the anomaly, but it's promptly rejected as Albedo toys with sending this section of space into a higher dimension as a favor to mankind. Junior's anti-Udu energy flares out in response to Albedo's Udu form, which now embraces his purpose as a weapon to destroy Albedo, who cackles in glee at the confrontation. As the two bioweapon brothers, once joined by the heart at birth, stab at those same hearts, Junior overcomes his immortal twin bound by a cosmic existence. After the battle, the mental space begins to collapse, as destroying this immaterial form of Albedo is one body he cannot regenerate. Now fading, Junior feels grief at seeing his brother die before him, but before he goes, a calmness returns to Albedo as he warns him about Negredo and asks him to think about why he doesn't react to Udu. As a light opens above, winged Type 99 Realians like the ones that used to surround him descend and carry Albedo beyond, who rejoices at finally being free. Now alone, Junior grieves as a vision of Sakura encourages him to get up. Wiping his tears, he understands that though he failed to protect his younger brother, he can still protect her younger sister. Blessing him with her love, her image fades as Junior collapses from fatigue, though he is caught by Chaos and Nephilim, who are mysteriously there to congratulate him. Nephilim also comments that this is not the end, but the beginning of something larger for the group, as the anomaly ends and the Zohar returns to its original form. Returning back to a relieved group, the Durandal moves to pick up the original Zohar. However, just then, a gnosis the size of an entire star system, with planets within its grasp, warps onto their location, collects the Zohar, and then vanishes just as quickly. As Chaos and Wilhelm observe what they call Abel's Ark, Wilhelm speaks to him, calling him Yeshua, and calling him out on his intervention, as Chaos replies that he's made up his mind not to hold back anymore. As the game ends, the group tries to go back to a normal life with their mission apparently over. Junior adopts an albino dog and names it Albie. Momo returns to her mother, who states they will be living together, but asks if Ziggy will continue watching over her. Ziggy replies he now works for the Kukai Foundation, though was given instructions that if Momo needed him, it would take top priority, and to that effect, he also agreed to a life extension thanks to the words of Junior. Shion and Jin part ways, as Jin is not convinced everything is resolved, as he intends to look into the Shadow Group Ormus now. As he boards the Elsa, the two siblings part warmly as an improvement in their relationship. Chaos returns to his station aboard the Elsa as they blast off, as Alan, Cosmos, and Shion return to their vector duties. At the same time, Wilhelm and the Testaments review the Y data, noting there is still a bit missing despite getting everything from Momo. As they continue to look into it, they revive Albedo as their newest partner and White Testament and look forward to Cosmos' awakening. Xenosaga Episode II has enjoyed the success of selling over 580,000 copies worldwide.